ship all banged up? Who's the man? Huh? Who's the man?
You are a former agent of a top-secret organization that monitors extraterrestrials on Earth. We're the Men in Black.
Wear a shirt today, you know, being the last day and all.
In 1995, a rapper from West Philadelphia sat down with his manager in a room and said 5 words that would change his life. I want to be the biggest movie star in the world. Most people who say something like that are dreaming. Will Smith was calculating. What happened next wasn't luck. It wasn't talent, though he had plenty of that. It was a system, a formula, something closer to a business plan than a career in acting.
And for over a decade, it worked perfectly. 8 consecutive films, grossing over $100 million. A record that still stands today. But formulas have a weakness. They work until the world changes around them. And when Will Smith's formula stopped working, the fallout was unlike anything Hollywood had seen. This is the story of how one man engineered his way to the top of an entire industry, and what happened when the engineering broke down.
Here's what most people don't know about Will Smith's rise. He didn't pick his early movies by reading scripts and going with his gut. He picked them the way a hedge fund manager picks stocks. Smith and his manager, a guy named James Lassiter, pulled the list of the 10 highest-grossing films of all time. They studied them the way you'd study a competitor's playbook. And they found a pattern. 10 out of 10 had special effects. 9 out of 10 had creatures. 8 out of 10 had a love story. So they went looking for movies that had all 3. Independence Day. Aliens invade. A love story runs through it. And the special effects blew people's minds in 1996. Men in Black. Aliens again, creatures everywhere, and a buddy comedy with just enough romance. Enemy of the State was the curveball. A thriller, no creatures, but it showed range. That was deliberate too. Smith didn't want to get boxed in as the alien movie guy.
2 Men in Black, you know, I felt like I didn't want to be the alien guy.
But here's where it gets really clever. Smith didn't just pick the right movies, he figured out how to multiply their value. He got advice from Arnold Schwarzenegger, of all people. Arnold told him to think of himself like a politician running for office. Go to every country, shake every hand, do every interview. Most actors hate the press tour. Smith treated it like a weapon. He worked out the maths. A film that would make 10 million in Spain could make 25 million if you actually showed up, did a premiere, did a day of press, learned a few phrases in the local language, and said them on the news. Multiply that across 30 countries, and you could take a film from 250 million to $500 million. He wasn't promoting movies. He was using movie studio budgets, $150 million in marketing, to promote himself. In his own words, "The movie's not the product here. I am the product." Think about that for a second. Most actors see themselves as employees of a studio system. Smith saw himself as the brand and the studios as his marketing department. And every single Monday morning, whether he had a film out or not, he sat down and read the box office reports, the way other people read the football scores. Now here's what made Smith different from every other actor who wanted to be number one. It wasn't just what he chose, it was what he refused. The Wachowskis came to him with a movie called The Matrix. They described a scene where he'd jump in the air during a fight and freeze while the camera moved around him. Smith didn't get it. He'd just done Independence Day and Men in Black. He was worried about being the sci-fi guy. So he passed and chose Wild Wild West instead.
He's talked about this publicly. He said he's not proud of that decision. But here's the thing nobody focuses on. It made complete sense inside his system. Wild Wild West was directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, who just made Men in Black a massive hit. It was a known quantity. The Matrix was 2 relatively unknown directors pitching a concept that sounded insane. By Smith's formula, Wild Wild West was the safer bet. And on paper, it was. The formula didn't fail him there. The formula was never built to identify artistic breakthroughs. It was built to minimize risk. And sometimes, minimizing risk means missing the thing that changes everything.
Years later, Quentin Tarantino came to him with Django Unchained. Wanted Smith to play Django, and Smith said no. This one is more revealing than The Matrix. Smith didn't turn it down because of scheduling. He turned it down because Django wasn't the lead. In his reading of the script, Christoph Waltz's bounty hunter was the main character. And Will Smith doesn't play second fiddle. But there's a deeper layer. Smith had spent his entire career deliberately avoiding roles that showed black men in positions of suffering. He said it plainly, "I wanted to depict black excellence alongside my white counterparts. I wanted to play roles that you would give to Tom Cruise." That wasn't just ego, it was a brand strategy, and it worked for 15 years. But it also put a ceiling on the kinds of stories he could tell. And as the industry started rewarding more complex, more morally difficult characters, Smith's playbook started looking a little out of date. For 12 years, from 1996 to 2008, Will Smith had a hit every single summer. He owned the 4th of July weekend the way Spielberg owned blockbuster cinema in the 80s. And then, quietly, the ground shifted underneath him. The movies he and Lassiter had used as their blueprint, the top 10 of all time, weren't the top 10 anymore. Harry Potter happened. Avatar happened, The Avengers happened. The era of the individual movie star driving a film to $1 billion was being replaced by the era of the franchise. Iron Man didn't need Will Smith. Iron Man had the Marvel logo.
Smith didn't adjust quickly enough, and the movies he chose during the stretch tell the story. Hancock in 2008 was the last real hit, $624 million worldwide. Then he disappeared for 4 years, came back with Men in Black 3, which felt like a safe play rather than a smart one, and then came After Earth. After Earth is the movie that broke Will Smith. Not because it was his worst film, it wasn't, but because of what it represented.
He'd co-written the story. He'd hired M. Night Shyamalan to direct, and he'd put his son Jaden in the lead, with himself in a supporting role. The whole project was designed to launch Jaden's career the way his own had been launched.
And where were you? She called out for you. She called your name.
It was the formula applied to the next generation. It opened at $27 million on a $130 million budget. To put that in perspective, Hancock had opened at $62 million.
Smith called it the most painful failure in my career. Not because of the money, because his son was involved and he'd led him into it. That word, excruciating, is the one he used.
And then something happened that you almost never see from a movie star at that level. He stopped. He took 1.5 years off, and he asked himself a question he'd been avoiding for 20 years. Why did being number one matter so much? The answer he came to was uncomfortable. He traced it back to being 15 years old. His girlfriend had cheated on him, and he'd decided right then that if he was the best at everything, no one would ever leave him again. Every box office record, every opening weekend, every number one, it was all fuel for that 15-year-old wound. That's an extraordinary thing for the biggest movie star in the world to admit out loud. What came next was actually kind of brilliant. Smith reinvented himself in a way that most actors his age never manage. He'd noticed that Dwayne Johnson was turning social media followers into box office dollars. So, with the same methodical approach he'd used on box office data in the 90s, he built a digital presence from scratch. He joined every platform late, but within 2 years, he had over 100 million followers. People close to him described the effort as unbelievably methodical. He took the Netflix deal for Bright, a movie most people in Hollywood side-eyed. But Smith saw it clearly. Netflix paid him $27 million up front, double what Warner Brothers would have offered. And the film reached 190 countries through the platform. He was using Netflix the same way he'd used movie studios in the 90s, as a vehicle to promote himself globally.
Then Aladdin crossed $1 billion, which shocked everyone. Bad Boys for Life opened huge, and King Richard was the masterpiece he'd been building toward. A prestige film, a true story, a physically transformative performance.
I done said what I want to say. Just mind your business. She not interested in you.
The Oscar campaign was textbook.
And he actually won the Academy Award for Best Actor. And then, roughly 90 seconds before that happened, he walked onto the stage at the Dolby Theatre and slapped Chris Rock on live television.
There's a version of this story where King Richard is the final chapter. The comeback complete. The boy from West Philly who built a formula, lost his way, found himself, and came back to win the highest honor in his industry. It's a perfect arc.
But the slap is what made this story fascinating from a career architecture perspective, because it wasn't a strategic failure. It was the opposite. It was the one moment in 30 years where Will Smith stopped being strategic, where the real person broke through the brand. 20 years of carefully choosing which roles to take, 15 years of protecting a public image, an entire career built on control. And one uncontrolled moment erased the narrative he'd spent a lifetime writing. Will Smith's career tells us something about the difference between a strategy and a story. A strategy is something you build. A story is something that happens to you. And the most interesting careers are the ones where the two collide. Smith built one of the most sophisticated career strategies any actor has ever attempted. He studied the data. He identified the patterns. He executed with a discipline that would be remarkable in any industry, let alone one as chaotic as Hollywood. And the lesson isn't that the strategy was wrong. For a decade, it was arguably perfect. The lesson is that no formula survives contact with a changing world forever. The franchises replaced the movie star era. The algorithm replaced the opening weekend. And one moment of raw, unfiltered humanity replaced 30 years of careful brand management.
Whether Will Smith comes back again, and if the last 30 years have taught us anything, you probably shouldn't bet against him. The blueprint he wrote for how to become famous is still out there.
I want it to be fun, and I want it to inspire hope.
Other actors are still using versions of it. But the blueprint for what happens when fame stops being enough, he's still writing that one.
That's it for this one. If you found this interesting, subscribe. Next time on Stunt Casting, we're looking at an actor who did the exact opposite of everything Will Smith did, and somehow came out the other side. Nicolas Cage burned it all down.